Sometimes in gaming, as in life, there are ups followed by downs, and bugs being a force for good, followed by the kinds of bugs that bring ruin to hardware when tempers flare. For instance, this week we learnt that while Neon Giant's newly released The Ascent has garnered mainly positive reviews, it managed to release with not only an intriguing bug that allowed players to play an interesting, albeit awkward pseudo first-person mode, but the game also managed to release without a functioning multiplayer mode, kind of a big deal in what is billed as a twin-stick cooperative shooter. CDPR and Cyberpunk 2077 must be wiping a prideful tear from their eye. And that was just one of the things we learned, so strap yourselves in for a bunch more. I'm Lorne, and here are 10 things we learned this week. Heaven may be a fanciful or even a fictional concept to some, but trust me when I say that I can give you a map reference, or in this case, a server address, for hell itself. Because this week we learned of the long and sordid history of 2B2T, and the hacker group Nerds Inc., who terrorized unwitting Minecraft players for over 3 years. It's complicated, but Nerd Inc. repeatedly crashed the server in a particular way, which would result in breaking blocks and chunks players were nowhere near, leading to a bug which only had one fix. That being, to have the server only let players interact with chunks they were currently in. Once Nerd Inc. had that data, they had ways to find the locations of every player on the server and abuse that fact to its fullest. Want some figures? 300,000 players were constantly tracked in real time, 15,000 bases were discovered, and over 200 million items were stolen. And worse still, players who use the server will encounter racism, porn, gore, and more recently, griefing on a scale hitherto untold, meaning no content fit for YouTube, that's for damn sure. Still, it doesn't sound much worse than the summer I'll have to endure when the Batman drops and Patterson's face is plastered over every consumer item I purchase. God help me.
Hello, meatbags! Want to hear some hype concerning an inevitably underwhelming gaming adapted movie? Great!
Because this week we learned even more details concerning the live-action Borderlands movie from Edgar Ramirez, who is set to play Atlas. Ramirez has done his bit to line the pockets of Randy Pitchford and shared why he thinks fans of the games should be excited for this upcoming adaptation. Quote, "In the end, games, movies, it's all about storytelling," Ramirez said. And the most iconic games, such as Borderlands, is the storytelling and the tone of the games what have made them so special. I mean, it's so dark and so witty and so whimsical as well. It's so in on the joke and kind of, like, impudent. There's a I don't give a damn attitude to the game. And that's what we rescued and put into the movie, so I'm very excited for the fans of the game to see it and to see how respectful we were to the tone of the game. Just so I'm clear then, it's dark yet funny, it's faithful to the games, and this was all spoken by an actor who wasn't a fan of the games. Wait a minute, I've got Platitude Bingo here, woohoo! Coming up next in the Old Man Yells at Cloud brand of news, this week we learnt that football manager of AS Roma and all-round grumpy bum, Jose Mourinho, has denounced the virtues of Fortnite. Quote, "Football players, they stay up all night playing that and the next day they have a game," he said, cackling. Darn right, Jose. I mean, this damn slurp-serving, material mining, constantly contracting hellscape of a game is just designed to whittle sharp young men into blithering imbeciles. But then again, Jose, I have heard David Beckham claim that he wasn't sure which religion he was going to christen his baby in, and that was when online gaming was in black and white. So maybe footballers have always been a shade dimmer than the average bear. And maybe Jose needs to stop being sour and hop on for Season 7 of Chapter 2 and perhaps download the latest skins featuring Street Fighter's Guile and Cammy. Because who knows what Fortnite might have in store. Speaking of which, are you in the mood for a massive music concert attended by millions of people but still aren't quite ready to brave the post-COVID world? Well, good news! Because this week we learnt that the worldwide music sensation, checks notes, Ariana Grande, who is of course famous for songs such as, checks notes, Problem and Break Up With Your Girlfriend, I'm Bored, joined the esteemed company of Marshmello and Travis Barker in performing on the Fortnite stage. Epic Games teased that a record-breaking superstar would be performing in Fortnite's upcoming Rift Tour concert series, and now we know that the mystery performer is none other than Ariana Grande. The 5-show concert series ran from the 6th of August to the 8th, and featured moments such as that moment when she sang a song everyone liked, and Another moment when everyone started jumping up and down because it's Fortnite and people can't sit still and enjoy a good musical performance, it seems. If you attended the concert, then you got a special umbrella glider, which is nice. Better than the surprise Epic got when they realised that there was a DaBaby feature on a recent update that they hadn't patched out of the game. But there you go, indisputable evidence that staying indoors is the safe way to progress in life. Indeed, no harm whatsoever can befall you, and I'm sure no evidence will come to light that will indicate anything to the contrary in the next 20 seconds or so. This week we learnt that a man has been chopped through his video game controller after a lightning strike. Wait, is this true? I thought that was an urban legend, really? A man from Robertson County in Tennessee was playing a video game during a storm this week when a nearby lightning strike resulted in him being shot straight up the wire of his controller. Now, while the gentleman was later confirmed to be fine, in 2020 the ironically named Karma, a pro Rocket League player, was also playing a game during a storm, and again holding a wired controller, lightning struck, resulting in burns to her hand, not to mention the fact that the shock from the bolt melted the USB connection to the port on the controller she was using. You wonder what she did to earn that distinction given the name Karma. But seriously, you can't even play games indoors without the dark hand of fate trying to murder us all these days? Man, we really are in the dark timeline. As the old saying goes, if you want an iconic game franchise brought up to date in terms of graphics and in-game mechanics, you gotta do it yourself. Okay, that's not an actual saying, but when it comes to Half-Life 2's sequel, fans clearly need to fill their time with something while they wait in vain for Valve to put them out of their misery. And this week we learnt that one fan has been filling their time by producing a remaster of Half-Life 2. And even more shockingly, it's with Valve's permission. According to its Steam DB page, Half-Life 2 Remastered Collection is not being developed by Valve, but instead by Philip Victor, a modder who developed the Half-Life Update mod that launched on the Steam store in 2015. Now, while the Remastered Collection will include the base game and episodes 1 and 2, I know, it's not Half-Life 3, but at this point I'd bet on us seeing GTA 6, Elder Scrolls 6, and an entertaining stream from Ninja dropping next week, long before we'd go headcrab hunting again. And Valve's consent in this case is evidence enough of that fact. But I think we all need to move on. I mean, for God's sake, people, don't you realise every time you hope for Half-Life 3, Gabe Newell steals a minute from your life, adds it to his, so that he can make you wait another minute for Half-Life 3? Do you want a McDonald's-inspired PS5 controller? No, you'd settle for PS just making enough consoles to go around? Okay, well good, because you're not getting one. A PS5 McDonald's controller or a PS5 it seems. But you might well have done had common sense not prevailed. According to sources, a leaked image of a McDonald's PlayStation 5 DualSense controller was never meant to be advertised, and that it was an internal concept that never left the planning phase, according to Mackie D's. However, confusingly, this was after the suits at Sony released a statement that seemed to indicate foul play on the part of Mac Daddies. Confusion between these two parties aside, the real question here is, when are we going to get ourselves the crossover event to end all crossovers in a full-fledged online battle royale game that pits acolytes of Ronald McDonald, Colonel Sanders, the Burger King, in a never-ending battle to the death? Come on now, let's bash them burgers and let the fries fly, my pretties, fly! Ha ha ha! This week we learnt that players are never above utilising any tactics necessary to gain XP. And this week we learned of one of the most nefarious plots of all. GTA Online players are walking in circles to farm a very specific type of XP. I know, I was disgusted to hear this too. But let us at least try to understand this heinous act. Well, players accumulate tuner XP in GTA Online over time by simply playing the game. But because a recent update prevented players from earning XP by, quote, AFKing and watching TV in their apartments, which one might assume was something GTA might want to encourage given the effort expended to put the content in the game to begin with, players decided to get off the couch and embrace their inner proclaimers by walking 500 in-game miles and then walking 500 more, by walking in circles repeatedly to attempt to max their level up to 1000. Not the sort of thing Dom Toretto would expect to see at a tuna meet, and that's from a bloke who shows up to work expecting to be shot through time into a parallel dimension in a Bugatti. And by the way, super ironic given that this update, you know, the update that spawned a bunch of AFKing behaviour, was meant to clamp down on AFKing players. Funny old world, isn't it? Ever feel nostalgic for the cheat codes found in the back of gaming magazines, scribbled on bits of paper traded between friends or later on the Code Shark cartridges of the Nintendo 64? Well then clearly, you do not work for Bungie and Ubisoft, because this week we learnt that they have filed a joint lawsuit against Ring 1, which advertises subscription bundles of various cheats and hacks on its site, such as aimbots, ESP tools to cheat health and radar systems, or infinite ammo hacks for games such as Rainbow Six Siege and Destiny 2. Now, in fairness, the site also hosts copyrighted material which they're also being sued for, which, fair play. And this is indeed a crackdown on unfair gameplay in online gaming, which is a blight on the enjoyment of innocent players who do not utilise such underhanded tactics. But unless this lawsuit is concluded quickly, my money is on Ring 1 boshing out their ace in the hole. R1, R1, circle, R2, up, down, up, down, up, down. Points if you understood that reference. And finally, we end this week, as we did last week, with the hellscape that is the Activision Blizzard hierarchy and the downfall of the developer as more and more details were released concerning the rampant abusive culture therein. But even with the employee walkout last week, oh boy, this week, there was indeed a reckoning to say the least. First of all, J. Allen Brack, the head of Blizzard Entertainment, stepped down as president on Tuesday. Then it was reported that Jesse Meschuk, the head of HR, had also left the company. Nothing suspicious or underhanded about that from a company who described the allegations as baseless. But that wasn't all. Because then they had to move on to the business of the most awkward investors call since WWE justified their trip to Jeddah that one time. And instead of a calm, measured response to a question concerning the allegations and indeed the lawsuit, Blizzard chose to fleetingly mention it and proceed to ignore the topic for the rest of the call. This was not a wise move, because then it was revealed that an investor had launched another lawsuit against the company for failing to disclose details of the investigation that, quote, misled shareholders to the potential extent of the damage that could have been done to the company's operations, as well as alleging that Blizzard might be inflating their value as a company. On a sliding scale of weeks that serve as kicks to the dick, this would be to Activision Blizzard having the cast of Stomp performing a river dance on their collective junk for the length of the average WrestleMania. And look, there's nothing wrong with a bit of schadenfreude against a company that's done a naughty or two. But here's to hoping that next week we have something good to end on, like, I don't know, Cyril's first studio album release titled That's the Way Defunct, Defunct, He Likes It, Defunct, Defunct, out in stores this Christmas. But that's going to have to wait for next week, because that, gamers and gamettes, was 10 things we learned this week. Hey, thanks for watching this edition of 10 Things We Learned This Week. If you like what you saw here, then you should know that we post new episodes almost every Sunday. So here's the question I have for you. What did you learn this week? I know we ask almost every week, but I want to hear what the haps is from the gamers and gamettes of the DG-verse, so be sure to leave us your thoughts in the comment section below. In other news, Cyril will be back next week with a review of Mini Madness, as well as a new episode of Game Over. So if you think that sounds all kinds of rad, then you absolutely have to click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then,